Lovies, it's David McGillivray here, a comedy legend, horror icon, and the program's called Little Did You Know, the Chat Show. And in this program, I talk to people I find interesting. I hope you agree. Today, we're on the eve of a very melancholy anniversary. It was a year ago that Boris Johnson addressed the nation and told us that we had to stay in our homes for 3 weeks. 365 days later, we're still in and out of lockdowns. In between two of them last year, I was doing a chat show on a video sharing platform called LDYK, and one of my guests on that show is my guest today. The show was taken off the air because of censorship, and only recently I discovered that my guest's entire archive online has been deleted also because of censorship. Now, this puts us in a very difficult position because my guest's archive was on the very platform that we're broadcasting on now. So we have to tread on eggshells to some degree. In other words, we're not going to be talking about everything during the next 45 minutes. The rest, the unexpurgated discussion, will be only for Patreon subscribers. So in 45 minutes time, please join us there. We'll be waiting for you. And if you're not a subscriber, here's the link. Please consider slipping us a pound. As you know, we always do our best to make sure it's good value for money. Free gifts, unseen videos, uncensored discussion. We've still got lots more to talk about right here. Don't worry about that. My guest is a writer and a filmmaker with a special interest in British softcore sexploitation of the 1970s. I'm not uninterested in that myself. In fact, I've written a book about it, and it won't be too much longer before I hold it up. I'd have thought. Will you please say hello to my guest, the very wonderful Fred Carno.
Thank you very much, David. It's lovely to be here.
Glad you're with us. A couple of episodes back, I spoke to Hans Berlin, your co-star, in fact, in a film I made called Trouser Bar. His real name's not Hans. Yours isn't Fred Carno. Where did that name come from?
It's just a name I've used for all my kind of various filmmaking activities. I plucked it from. It's actually Charlie Chaplin's manager was Fred Carno, and I just really like the name. I mean, the original Fred Carno actually met quite a sad end. He ended up a pauper from gambling debts.
I didn't know that, but
he opened a casino in just near Hampton Court on a boat.
Wasn't it called Fred Carno's Fun House or something?
Something like that, yeah. And it was a complete disaster. And I think he ended up in Putney in a poorhouse. Whereas Charlie Chaplin, obviously, you know, he soared into the stratosphere, leaving his mentor behind, I guess.
It's a sad story, but that's not yours.
No. I'm not pauper yet.
Not quite yet. Something tells me you're in Hounslow. You've written about and indeed photographed this London Borough for some years. Tell us a bit more about Hounslow.
Well, Hounslow, it's often the butt of kind of jokes. Hounslow, you say, "Oh God, Hounslow!" It's just one of those places everyone goes, "Oh my God, Hounslow." It is a bit of a s-hole, to be honest. And I did chronicle this in an amusing short film called Welcome to Hounslow, which was based on a sort of 1950 style travelogue, and it showed all the wonderful sights, sounds, and smells of Hounslow. And it was a very popular film, actually. Lots of people love it. And I have been kind of on and off chronicling little parts of Hounslow putting it on Instagram, Facebook, things like that, calling it "Welcome to Hounslow." For example, there's a wonderful plastic surgeon who resides down Kingsley Road opposite Hounslow East Station, and he posts photocopied A4 notices on his door saying what a wonderful plastic surgeon he is. And to be honest, I can't imagine who would go there for plastic surgery.
You haven't taken advantages of his services yourself.
Not just yet, no.
You can probably also reel off the films that have been shot in Hounslow. I know that we saw one not so long ago on a London TV channel called London Live, and almost appropriately, it was terrible.
Yes, of course it was. Yeah. Well, that fits in with my whole filmmaking ethos, I suppose. I mean, a lot of people say my films are terrible.
You know they do, and we may have some quotes later on. But before we get to that, just tell us. It's a is it a special policeman's cap?
Special. It was bought for a prop in one of my films, but we didn't go with that. We went with this one instead in the Adventures of a Plumber in Outer Space. So this is the actual helmet that was used.
No.
It's funny when you buy these helmets online, you can't actually. They're not allowed to sell them with the badge on.
I was going to ask, where's
Yeah.
the?
You can for some reason there's some legal thing where they can sell the helmet and the badge, but not with the badge on the helmet.
So you had to put your own badge on there.
I did. I got a badge from a sort of 50p plastic policeman's helmet you buy down in London.
Thank you for that. And now we'll have that one back again because it suits you. Now, this is interesting because we had a chat before. Oh, it was last summer now. So, of course, I was able to do research on you online. There was an enormous amount about you online, which is all now disappeared. So I couldn't, having thrown away my notes, do this research again. So you're going to have to remind me about some high points in your career. I can probably remember a fair amount of it. Don't worry. It all revolves around Hounslow, doesn't it, Jan? Because you were, oh, that's your real name. Sorry, Fred.
I've been revealed.
I won't tell anyone. You were brought up in Hounslow.
Yes, I was. For some reason, I've never really left, to be honest. But yeah, all my films pretty much have been filmed in. Most of them have been filmed in Hounslow or parts of Hounslow. So I started making some rubbish kind of when I was 16, just some dodgy horror stop motion sort of things with the friends. And then the first kind of proper film I did was called Teenage Ecstasy, which was kind of an expose of the teenage drug scene and the heartbreak it causes.
We want to talk about that definitely. That's your first official credit. It stars somebody else whose name is going to come up regularly during the next 45 minutes, probably Vic Pratt. Now you both grew up in the Hounslow area. Was it before you started making films, you formed a band?
That's right. That's kind of how I first knew him. Yeah, we kind of used to hang out at the Red Lion heavy metal rock disco in Brentford. Sadly, the Red Lion's no longer there. It's now a McDonald's.
Oh no.
But the heavy metal disco is quite legendary in the area. It was run by Juicy Lucy, I believe, was her name. I don't know if that's her real name, but that's the name she acquired.
Not her real name. Back to names. Tell us the reason for the name of the band.
Okay, so the band's called the Dylan Rabbit, and I guess it's named after the rabbit from the Magic Roundabout, who was a sort of laid back hippie sort of rabbit. So yeah, we did that. We won when we were like 18. We won a Battle of the Bands competition, and we thought we were going to be really big and famous. We kind of were popular, quite popular for a while, but then kind of tailed off a bit, but we've kept going. You know, we're still going today.
You you did indeed keep going. In fact, there was a notable comeback, I believe, at the Carshalton Environmental Fair in 2018. Let's talk about the band itself. We can still hear some of your tracks because they're on SoundCloud.
They are, yes.
It's just that you can't click a link anymore to watch you. We're
No.
going to talk about that more on Patreon. But tell us about the style of music. I have a feeling it's alternative pop mixed with performance art. Is that fair?
Yes, that kind of hits the nail on the head, I would say. Um, I mean, we started off as a sort of more rocky, heavy metal band, but it kind of morphed over the years. Me and Vic used to just do more and more performance stuff on stage, and which usually ended up in one or other of us being naked. That kind of era culminated in an absolutely outrageous gig at the at a Trauma Film Festival in Berlin, which was in a disused warehouse. Honestly, the people that were there, I've never seen such a bunch of. I don't know if your viewers know about trauma films, but they're pretty
Extreme.
extreme, yeah, and their followers are quite extreme as well sometimes. And the gig just ended in absolute chaos. We were rolling on the floor, covered in foam. I was wrestling with a blow-up doll. Then two guys just ran on naked and chased us off stage. It was just completely crazy.
I wish I'd been. I wish I'd been there. One of your inspirations is the band the Bonzo Dogs, isn't it?
It is, yes. And we did actually. We recorded a CD with Rodney Slater, who plays the saxophone in the Bonzo Dog Band. We also supported a band called the Bill Posters Will Be Band that has members of the Bonzo Dog Band in it. So we're quite intertwined with that whole Bonzo ethos, you know.
Well, one quote that has survived about the Dylan Rabbit is, and it is a quote, "Worst band in the world."
Well, now I know where this might come from. Now, in early 90s, I sent one of our pop videos off to the TV show The Word, and they had a spin-off show called Access All Areas. And every week, Mark Lamar would introduce the worst band of the week. And lo and behold, one week I was watching it, and he said, and I can remember the quote, "Last week we had Baskerville City Raiders on. We didn't think they could get any worse than that. We could find a band worse than that, but we hadn't heard of the Dylan Rabbit until then." And lo and behold, he showed a clip from a video I'd made.
But the Dylan Rabbit is still going to
Exactly.
sucks to Mark Lamar. It's another coincidence. I quite often have previews with my guests, and it just so happens that I directed a video for another worst band in the world, according to the word, and
Ah,
and they were on as well. They were called Screaming Marionettes.
okay.
Put that video on Patreon, but their lead singer is now a very successful actor. So there you go. Being the worst band in the world doesn't do you any harm necessarily.
I can just say we're still causing upset because at the Carshalton Environmental Fair comeback, which we hadn't played for about 3 or 4 years, um, I think we upset a few people because it ended with one of the band members, I won't say who, running around in his underpants, and again me wrestling with a blow up doll.
There's a theme here.
Yeah, it did cause some of the children to run away screaming.
Oh,
As well.
I wonder why. So you're in the Dylan Rabbit
Yeah.
with this man called Vic Pratt, and occasionally another friend of mine called Will Fowler. How I know these two guys, Vic and Will, for the benefit of viewers, is that they now both work for the British Film Institute, and they were instrumental in introducing sexploitation films to BFI South Bank, and indeed on DVD. So you making films with Vic as well, and the early ones are rather like John Waters films.
Yeah.
Nobody sees them, and one of these was Teenage Ecstasy. So you're going to have to describe this, Fred.
Well, it's all about this guy called Victor Vincent, who was played by Vic, and he's basically a clean-cut teenager, and his friends are always smoking drugs, and there's a lot of, oh man, this is great, and he gets embroiled with these two drug dealers, and they put some this whatever this drug is, it's never mentioned. They put it in his tea, and he instantly gets hooked. And this all takes place in a couple of days, and he spirals into a horrible downward spiral, and it ends up quite violently, where he sort of goes nuts and kills everyone.
Never been released.
Um, well, it's not in great shape, to be honest. It was filmed on Video 8. I have actually just managed to download quite a decent digital copy, so watch this space.
And your other early films, do they still exist? I'm talking about titles like Cult of the Planet of the Apes and Inspector Zucker versus Gorgo.
Yes, they very much exist. They will be unleashed onto the world again one day. These stem from my obsession with kind of apes. I always have apes in my films if I can. Cult of the Planet of the Apes is a kind of weird horror film that, again, it ends up with some guy dressed as an ape, and he kind of murders people. And
As did Gorgo.
hey,
As did Gorgo. This is a film.
Gorgo, yeah. Well, no, that's like this. That Gorgo is slightly different. So Inspector Zucker is a character I had before in a film called Mutant, which was never really finished, to be honest. So he's this mysterious kind of police officer who kind of appears when there's a crime, and nobody knows where he comes from. And he in this one he battles this guy called Professor Shatner, played with great aplomb by Vic. One of his finest performances, I must say. And this professor has created these half gorilla, half men hybrids, and he wants to create half gorilla, half women hybrids and take over the world.
Unfinished film. Will it ever be finished, or is it now lost?
Mutant. It's called Mutant. It's kind of finished-ish now. Yeah.
You're what? Still working on it.
I think it's pretty much done now. I have tinkered with it the last year or so. Yeah. Again, watch out for it.
Marvelous. So then we move on to your sexploitation films.
Yes.
And okay, so this is where I have to hold up the book. Okay, so I wrote that book, and I did review your two films. One has a very long title indeed, and it's Can You Keep It Up with This, That, and the Other for a Week? And the sequel is called Adventures of a Plumber in Outer Space. Let's talk about the first one first. And firstly, how I described it. Sorry about this, Fred. What I wrote. Can You Keep It Up with This, That, and the Other for a Week is a parody, somewhat overdone, of the Confessions films and their ilk. And this is about a window cleaner named Robin Evans. That's an amalgamation. We'll come to that in a minute, no doubt. He's subjected to a sex ray, one that makes him irresistible to women, men, and a gorilla. So there's the ape again. So you're obsessed with gorillas. You're also obsessed with eggs, which we're going to get to in a minute. But why the obsession with sexploitation films of the 1970s?
Well, I guess a lot of it came from reading your book, David, when it first came out. There was a whole, I don't know, these films were kind of a bit mysterious, and they were really hard to see in the sort of 90s, early 2000s. But when you did it, I mean, there's really, I think they're quite funny. And I just love that whole British, it's kind of sex, but not sex. Generally people have sex, but it ends badly or gets interrupted, and that's just the kind of plot I kind of like. But yeah,
Who's Robin Evans? Where did that name come from?
Robin Evans is an amalgamation of Robin Asquith, who obviously is a great star of the Confessions films and many others, and Barry Evans, who was in The Adventures of a Taxi Driver and Under the Doctor. So yeah, this film is kind of one of those plots, but condensed into sort of 15 minutes. So it's quite a frantic kind of lots of running around and women in their underwear and gorillas. And if I can just say, the plot of the sex ray is also used in a film that you might be familiar with, David.
I'm afraid it is. Yeah. All the filth is coming out now. Yeah. Okay, so that film's called I'm Not Feeling Myself Tonight. One of the great all-time titles for a sex film, I think. But the film is atrocious. I said in my book at the time of going to press, so this is 2017, this is 4 years ago, your film has had nearly 200,000 hits on YouTube, which suggests that its crude content is still to our taste. Now, something tells me that before your unfortunate incident, which we're not going to talk about now, those hits must have increased substantially.
They did. It was up to over 500,000, and it had, it was quite popular as well as in the UK. It's popular in India and Egypt and Saudi Arabia for some reason, because you can check on YouTube. You can look at the sort of diagnostics of where people are watching. It had a very strong following in the sort of Middle Eastern sort of area of the world. I don't know what that says, but
Well, it says that they like your films, which is absolutely marvellous.
yeah.
You then made a sequel, and let's see what I said about this. Ah, yes. Robin Evans returned in a longer sequel, The Adventures of a Plumber in Outer Space. A bit more about the plot there. I mentioned that this time the budget appears to have stretched to a few costumes. Stanley Long, who made a lot of sex films himself, appears in one scene and says two words. And you have in your possession one of Stanley Long's props, I believe.
I do. If I can just say about Stanley Long, I met him at the BFI actually, and I gave him a copy of my film "Can You Keep It Up for a Week?" And the next day he phoned me up and said he'd watched it and would I like to come round and um, have a chat with him. So I went round to his really nice house in Denham, um, and he was such a nice guy. He spent a lot of time with me. He was kind of a bit of a mentor. He showed me some of his films and he sort of talked through them. And he also introduced me to Mike Armstrong. I met Mike Armstrong in a cafe off the Edgware Road somewhere, and he kind of gave me a masterclass in writing comedy. Whether I took any of it in, I'm not sure.
So Stanley Long, yes, he made the Adventures.
Adventures, yeah,
Michael Armstrong made Known Now, another sexploitation classic, and of course Stanley Long was at BFI South Bank because Vic and Will had arranged for him to introduce another of his films, which is
exactly.
absolutely marvelous. So, what have you got under your desk that used to belong to Stanley Long? Jan? Oh, Fred.
This is this is the plunger that was used in the Sandy Long film, The Adventures of a Plumber's Mate. And I can describe the scene if you like. So basically, it's Christopher Neal. He's in there's a party, there's a swimming pool, and he's there to fix the plumbing. And he gets it stuck on a girl's behind. He can't get it off, and he pulls it off, and he goes flying backwards. And this bit gets stuck in the behind of a rather camp gentleman who rather enjoys it.
Oh, well, well. Times were different there in those days, lovies. We're talking just a minute about the follow-up to Fred's first sexploitation classic. But before we do that, we're going to take just a little break to see the trailer of a Peccadillo release. And I haven't seen it myself. I have a feeling from the title it's another parody. So have a look at Who's Afraid of Vagina Wolf, and then join us again in a couple of minutes.
This is me, a newly minted 40-year-old living the life I've always dreamed of. Life is sweet, or at least that's what I used to tell myself before I had a full-blown nervous breakdown. But let's not get ahead of the story.
Oh my God, is she okay?
Yeah, that's my friend. She lives in the garage. Happens all the time.
I'm Katya, Amor.
I had a muse. Oh my God, her fingers are tangled in my hair. I had to make this work.
I don't mean to burst your bubble, honey. Boop. Here's the thing. Lesbian films don't make any money.
You know how you get when you like a girl? First, you change your personality completely because, of course, no one will want to know the real you. And then you do your little microscopic move, like a little squirrel. And you obsess over her reaction, and there is no reaction. It's non-existent.
You can do it. You are a walking vagina.
Anna, there are more important things to life than this movie.
Like what?
Like love.
Every year, I look at the same pitiful goals, and every year I fall short. But this year, it's gonna be different. This year, I'm gonna do it all.
I got a role for you. I want you to be Angel Tits, the stud professor's mousy wife.
Angel Tits?
Yeah.
You want me to play Angel Tits?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe this!
That's Who's Afraid of Vagina Wolf. It's a peccadillo release. And I'm David McGillivray here with my guest, Fred Karno, who is still manipulating his sink plunger. Where's that from, Fred?
It's belonged to Stanley Logg. It's an original artifact from the sex comedies of the 70s. I'm not sure it's been ever cleaned. Hopefully it has.
And he gifted that to you. He also said two lines in two words, I think, in one of your films. What are the words?
Bloody hooligan. He says out of his Jag as no, not a Jag, Bentley. It was a Bentley, his gold Bentley. He imagine that he turned up at my humble house in Isleworth in his gold Bentley, and then he proceeded to drive up and down the road and nearly run over Vic Pratt in his underpants.
Vic Pratt in his underpants again. So we're now going to discuss Adventures of a Plumber in Outer Space. Now, as I've mentioned before, a lot of your stuff has disappeared from online, and so the only review I can now find of this film, with the exception of my own in my book Doing Rude Things, says cheap sets, cheap laughs, don't bother. That's on IMDb. Something tells me that he might have just got it a bit wrong, because that's what you were intending.
That is the idea, yeah. If I can just point out, it is actually on Amazon Prime. If you've got Amazon Prime, you can actually watch my films on there in their full uncensored versions and cheap sets.
And I also, that only Patreon viewers can see Fred's first film, Can You Keep It Up, with This, That and the Other. It's going to be available on Patreon.
Oh, yes. So Adventures of a Plumber in Outer Space. It was quite ambitious, considering not much money was spent on it. But, I did get lots of nice space costumes. I got, quite a good cast together. I had the usual, Vic, I had my wife, who's always in the films. And I also had some professional actors for the first time. Two amazing guys called Kevin James and Quinn Patrick, who Michael Armstrong insisted I use. And Quinn is quite a renowned pantomime dame, actually. He's a very good dame, and he was absolutely outrageously camp, and he fit the role perfectly.
And he's got a Facebook channel as well. I think he turns up there every Friday night. A wonderful film, Fred, that will now live forever on Amazon Prime. How marvelous!
Can I just say one more thing?
Please.
regarding this plunger in the film, it's actually used. The plumber is plunging it on Mrs. Zucker's behind. Mrs. Zucker, played by my wife, and Stanley Long actually sent me some advice. Can I read it out?
Oh, go on.
This is Stanley Long's advice on how to plunge a girl's behind. Dear Jan, first cast a girl with a nice smooth butt, then moisten the plunger, it should stick okay. Or lick the bum, brackets, ask wife's permission, and this might work better, brackets, and much more fun. Regards, Stanley.
The late great Stanley Long. Can we talk about the budgets of your films, Fred?
What budgets?
Yeah. So they don't cost much. Even so, you're not making an enormous amount of money out of them. So presumably, all this time you've got a, as they say, proper job.
Well, I've not actually had a proper job for some time, I must say.
What did you use to do?
Well, I used to do kind of boring stuff. I used to work in museums in HR. It was quite a tedious existence, really.
But now you no longer have to work.
Well, I do really, but I just haven't got any work at the moment. What I've been doing. I've been becoming a kind of a thing on Twitter lately, I must say.
Yes, we want to talk about it because this is something that has developed recently, and it is absolutely astonishing. So tell us about Saucy 70s on Twitter, which now has 9,000 plus followers.
Yeah, so basically I just started out. I thought I never really got Twitter, to be honest. I was on there, but I never really understood how it works or how you get people to look at stuff. So what I started to do, I started just putting up film reviews of 70s sex comedies with pictures. They were from the monthly film bulletin, and some of them were written by you, actually, I believe.
I'm afraid so, yeah.
And then I started to put on clips of films as well, and then suddenly people started watching all these clips because people were saying, "Oh, I've never, I can't see these films. How can I see them?" And it kind of went on from there. So I've shown, I do loads of clips from 70s sex comedies. I just do loads of other 70s related stuff, and it's just kind of grown. So this month I've been doing a Twitter film festival with Robin Asquith.
Yes, tell us about this. There's a Robin Asquith festival that consists of what? A new film extract every day.
So basically, Robin's got these incredible diaries that he's kept of his entire career. He puts photos up of them. It's basically everything he's ever done. He's got written in complete detail. You know, he has things in there like met Richard O'Sullivan for lunch, or all details like that. So he's basically he reckons he's made 31 films. So he's going through each one in order throughout March, and I'm just putting clips of them. Some of them have been quite hard to find clips of, I must say, especially one called Hans Brinker and the Silver Skates, which was like a children's Disney-esque type film made in the late 60s. But I managed to find this amazing clip of him singing a song about Amsterdam and skating.
How wonderful. This when he was a child actor, yes.
Yeah, he was late teens, I think, yeah.
Have you met him?
I've been to some of his shows. I actually went to one last year in between the lockdowns. He did a show at the Phoenix Arts Club, which was pretty incredible.
He's a great performer. He really knows how to turn it on for the fans.
Yeah. And his career has just been absolutely incredible. You know, it spans. Obviously, he's got the sex comedies, but he's got Lindsay Anderson, Pasolini, all this going on.
It's unique.
It is
Absolutely. Fred, you've also written a book about your career. I'm hoping you've got it there.
Ah, what's this? Oh, and it's got my real name on it, just there.
Yes.
There you go. So yeah, I've written a book. It's self-published, but it's not shoddy. It's quite well presented. It's got lots of pictures. It basically goes through my entire career in film. You know, there's a bit of advice in there as well, how to go about making your own low budget movies.
There's a lot of simply dressed people in
There is indeed, and a lot of sort of gorillas as well, and apes and things.
the gorillas we know about, the eggs we don't.
Eggs, yes. Now I had another. I'm quite fond of alter egos. So basically, the Dylan Rabbit used to sing this song called "Here Comes the Eggman," in which we wore these papier-mâché eggheads. And way back in 2014, we were going to go on Britain's Got Talent audition as these characters, the Eggmen. But my co-conspirator pulled out at the last minute, so I went on my own as the Eggman, and I got through to the sort of televised bit on the big stage at Hammersmith Odeon. Hammersmith Odeon.
Apollo, I think.
Apollo, yeah, that's it, Apollo. So I was there, Anton Dare called the judges, and I was on for about 10 seconds and they buzzed me off, and that was it. They hated it, absolutely hated it.
It was less than 10 seconds, actually, Fred. I did see it. I was looking forward to it. I mean, obviously, we didn't see that much. So what did you do on stage for the panel?
It was a song called "Here Comes the Eggman," basically, but I was dressed as this egg, and I was going to do a whole like 2-minute act, but it just got curtailed rather quickly.
You could have been the novelty act. There was always one. Why didn't they like it?
No, it was something to do with David Williams, I think. He didn't like it. He said some pretty nasty things about me.
Oh, we must. What did David Williams say about your Eggman?
He said, when I went off, he said something, a comment. It was something along the lines of, "It's not Britain's Got Talent, it's Britain's Got Special Needs," or something like that. Something like that. And my kids were quite young at the time, and they were in the audience, and they burst into tears when they heard that.
Oh, the Eggman time will come, Fred. Okay, so now we know everything about eggs, apes, and plumbers. That's the title of the book. And where can we get it?
You can buy it on Amazon. It's available now. It's a book, and it's an e-book as well.
Marvelous.
You should buy it. It's a really good read. Good value for money.
That's the end of the plug. Tell us about your greatest fan, Fred.
My greatest fan?
Yes. It's a leading. I will give you a clue if you like.
You better give me a clue. I can't think.
He bends spoons.
Oh, oh God, that fan. Yuri Geller, yeah. So we did this song about Yuri Geller called Yuri Geller, He Bends Spoons, and he phoned us up. I guess he found out from his mind powers about it. I don't know. I think he read it in a local paper, actually. Because I think he had one of those services that scours the press for any mentions of him. You know, I guess he found out that way. So he invited us round to his house, and he said he wanted to produce it as a single, and he talked about going to Barbados and all these weird, wonderful things. But it never came to anything, sadly.
I'm going to ask it. Did he bend a spoon for you?
He did, actually, yeah. He did bend the spoon, but he said he had to bend it near this metal statue. He said he had to stand by this metal statue to bend it, which was quite odd. And we did actually go back again about a year later. I can't remember why we went back again. He just invited us round just for fun, I think. Oh, that's right, because he was drawing a cover for our CD. He drew the inside cover for our CD. So we got this original Yuri Geller artwork in there.
Yes, the CD is called?
The CD you can't get anymore. I think there's only about 3 copies in existence. It was released in 1999, Dylan Rabbit CD, called Musicali Obscura.
So it's probably changing hands for heaven knows what.
If you can find a copy, yeah, you're going to have to pay through the nose.
Okay, so you were close up with Yuri Geller. Have you got a theory about what he's doing with those spoons?
Well, I hate to say it, I actually like Yuri Geller. I think over the years he actually came to believe he had special powers. That was the problem. But I think in later years he's kind of realised, you know, I'm a magician, right? That's what he is. And he does occasional things where he guesses who's going to become prime minister and things like that and claims credit for it. But I think he had terrible trouble with James Randi, you know, over the years. He was suing him everywhere all around the world. And
But what a great conflict! I mean, I love that. James Randi's no longer with us, but did he offer $1 million for?
Randy, yeah, $1 million if you could prove you had psychic powers, and nobody ever could ever. No, hardly anyone ever tried to prove it because they knew, you know, it would be a disaster. But I did meet Uri again a couple of years ago. He was selling, well, not literally selling, but he was peddling Kellogg's Cocoa Pops in the Westfield shopping centre. He was doing. He was basically doing this thing where they were giving away a Yuri Geller breakfast spoon, and he was doing just standing there with loads of boxes of Cocoa Pops, trying to create publicity for them.
Oh well, I hope we haven't spoilt it for anyone. Yes, Yuri Geller, he is a magician, but he's not a bad one.
He's good. He's good. You know, and I suppose you have to keep up that pretense that everything you're doing is real. You know.
No, it's a good act. Now, is it possible, Fred, that because of your hugely successful Saucy 70s page on Twitter, that people have been more and more interested in the softcore porn of the 70s? I hear there's even a documentary being made about it now.
Yes, apparently, yeah, there is great interest. I mean, a lot of people of my sort of age love this kind of stuff. You know, it kind of brings them back to that kind of innocent era, I suppose, because they are kind of innocent films, really. I mean, they're not. I mean, yeah, in this current climate, there'll be people getting upset saying they're sexist, misogynist, whatever, which they are, you know, frankly. But you know, the Carry On films are still enormously popular. You just have to put a picture of Sid James up on Twitter, and 1 million people will, you know, love it. You know, so there's a lot of effect, and people because someone like Robin Asquith still exists. You know, he's a great kind of link to that past, not just because of those films, but he's worked with so many people. It's quite incredible how many people you look at the cast of one of those films, it's got, you know, John Le Mesurier is in it, you know, all these kind of classic people are in these films.
It's true. So the Twitter account is at Saucy70s.
That's right.
Go there and look a lot of Robin Asquith.
And there's been clips of your films on there as well, David.
Goodness no. Why, oh why, is there a need?
People love it.
And the film that's coming out is called Keeping the British End Up, and that's the film of another book about saucy British comedy written by Simon Sheridan, who is one of many people who now know much more about the subject than I do.
That's right. Yeah, he's been dropping sort of hints on Twitter about it, but I think he's done quite a lot of filming for it, so it should be good.
Will you be appearing in Fred?
Sadly, I've not been asked yet, but who knows?
Let's see what develops. Is it true, Fred, that you may be leaving Hounslow?
Not just yet. There's maybe. I don't want to say too much at the moment, but there is talks of going to live by the seaside at some point in the nearest future.
If it happens, will you miss Hounslow?
I doubt it.
Great.
I've been here too long now. It's time to move on.
Well, wherever you end up, Fred, we'll keep in touch.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
We've got to end it there.
Oh.
Unfortunately, the time has flown, but we're only ending it here on YouTube. As I mentioned before, we're now going to have an in-depth discussion, but not here, on Patreon. If you're not a subscriber, there's the link. This is going to be juicy stuff. So I think it's well worth as little as £1. That's my opinion anyway. I can't wait to find out more about Fred Karno's battle with censorship. But for now, here on YouTube, I'm afraid it's a case of bye-bye, Fred. Thanks very much.
Great to be here. See you, folks.
And goodbye from me, David McGillivray. Next week, my guest is David Benedict. He's a writer, and whenever he's a talking head on radio or television, he's almost always more interesting than the subject of the program. So that's why I wanted to talk to him. He really is good value, lovey. So please don't miss that. Join me again at the same time next week. Until then, this is David McGillivray. Bye-bye.